Humans aren't born out of laying around on their asses. We've been born out of conquering a world. We're the dominant species. We built all this. We're powerful and we're beautiful and we're ready to build the next level of civilization in God's plan. But you must stop bowing to those who want to make you a victim. You must become the victor. If you love God and you want to build a pro-human future, then you are an enemy of the New World Order and Satanism. They want us shut down because we have the Spirit. I'm jacked into the source. I know the secret, and I want to see you empowered. But you have to believe in yourself first. This is the truth, and everyone knows it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, there are certain topics that you can't really talk about honestly, because there is a cartel of liberal virtue signalers that are constantly looking to expel their white guilt, which is a leftist mental ill virtue signal that really is deeply pathetic and condescending and racist. But when you notice certain patterns, because humans are pattern recognition machines, there's certain ones that you can't even whisper. Because if you do, then you're the problem. Now, how does this make sense? That somebody like me, who has not committed a crime, who hasn't done anything wrong, who is simply acknowledging that there seems to be a pattern amongst a certain demographic, not the entire demographic, a certain demographic, a portion of it, a portion that really should be laser focused in on young black men. We're not talking about elderly black men. We're not talking about elderly black women. We're not talking about black infants. We're not talking about we're not talking about the terrible twos. There is, between the age of, I would say, 13 to 21, there is a group in this country that makes up, I would say, black people are 13% of the population. I would say that makes up probably 6%. You think that's fair? 6% of the population that has a problem that is disproportionately higher than every other group. Every other group. This isn't a, white makes right type of thing. No, every other group. Instead of focusing on that problem, you're supposed to affirm this group of people, pretend that the problem doesn't exist, and if you do, then you're the problem. It's the same thing with the trans community. These people will say, the trans community has a 40% suicide ideation. You say, wow, that's a pretty serious problem. We should get these people mental health, checks and have them see therapists and put them on medication and not really use this as an identification or an identity or affirm this in any way. That this should be something that is immediately identified as a problem, and it should be treated with compassion, and people who suffer from this affliction should be made to get help so that their lives can be normal. They can try to live a meaningful, fulfilled life instead of going down this path of the trans assembly line where doctors and pharmaceutical companies make a lot of money, and these people basically ruin themselves for the future. They sterilize themselves and they mutilate themselves. And then they realize, oh, I've been lied to, and then they, do that terrible thing. I think those people should be helped, just like I think that this group should be helped. And the way that you help them is, there's multifaceted approaches, but what we're doing now doesn't work. Pretending that the problem doesn't exist doesn't work. And what you're about to see from Asmongold is he's going to talk about this. He's going to acknowledge it. But the first thing out of his mouth, because he knows, is, I'm not even going to mention this as a race issue. I'm not even going to mention the race of the person. And his reasoning for it was, well, because that's like downstream of, gender. And I don't want to talk about gender either, which is insane. That is one of the lamest cop-outs, but I understand he's on Twitch, and it's something that a lot of people are petrified of. They don't want to address this. And I'm here to tell you, whatever you think of me or my content or my reasoning, at the end of the day, you don't help anyone by pretending that the problem doesn't exist. Not one person is helped by pretending that the problem isn't real. And we can see this not just in America, but across the globe. Across the globe. You look at Canada, you look at Australia, you look at the UK. Hell, look at Africa, look at South Africa. There is a major problem where people on the basis of race are terrified of addressing real world problems, so people will suffer because others are too petrified to address this honestly in the hopes of getting a solution figured out that's of benefit to everyone. At the end of the day, that's what I would like to see. A solution that benefits everyone, but at the same time doesn't allow this sort of stuff to continue.
This twin brother opens up as threat. Oh yeah, so this guy, I don't really know like what happened with this story because like there's been a lot of like information back and forth, but
no, he knows exactly what happened with this story. He knows exactly what happened with the story. He's on Twitch, so he's going, oh, well, I don't know what happened. The moment that I pulled that up, every person watching this video knew what happened. That's not a stereotype. It's not a judgment based off of, prejudice or bigotry. It's humans are pattern recognition machines. Pattern recognition machines. Now, you tell them that you can't identify this pattern because you're a problem, you're a racist. They're still going to notice the pattern, they're just not going to say it. And then the problem continues and it gets worse, and people still notice it, but don't say it. We know the pattern. The moment he pulled that up, you knew what the story was. Now, we're going to get into the details, of course. That's what the story is about, is getting into the details of this one specific case. But I'm just here to tell you, all of you white, guilt-ridden liberals, you're not helping the black community by pretending that this pattern doesn't exist. Or that, it exists, but it only exists for the... No. Your reasoning is askew.
But at the end of the day, this dude stabbed this dude to death, right? Killed him. And it was over some bullshit. This is apparently his...
I mean... Yeah.
Brother talking about it?
There was this kid, before I knew his name now, this kid was sitting under our tent at track.
Yeah.
We asked him to move. He started getting aggressive and talking reckless. And my brother stepped in and said, you need to move. And he's like, make me move. Also grabbed his backpack. The kid, I tried to whip around as fast as I could, but I didn't see the stab. But then I look at my
So you go, this dude's stabbing somebody over a seat. So whenever I said he stabbed him over some bullshit, like I didn't even understand, like really. So he's stabbing him over.
It was really senseless. Really, I don't know why a person would do that to someone just over that, up and do that.
I tell you why. It's because there's something wrong with him. It's not the first time that this has happened. I don't like getting into the race politics of stuff because I feel like down the road of the race politics is also gender politics.
This is the last story in the world that I should be laughing at, but I'm sorry, I can't help myself. I don't really like talking about the race element of this because it's downstream of the gender. It's downstream of gender. Oh, God.
And I disagree with the conclusion of those gender politics.
God. Now, I know why Asmon's doing this. You know why Asmon's doing this. It's because, well, Twitch is run by a bunch of the whitest of white guilt-ridden communist leftists. We know why Asmon is doing this. But this doesn't help anyone. They said the same thing. They said the same thing about the guy on the subway that Daniel Penny, remember the New York subway hero? That guy that had to be restrained. They said, oh, it's just mental health problems. No, the guy had been arrested over and over and over for egregious crimes. Over and over, caught, released, caught, released, caught, released, caught, released, caught, released, caught, released. Daniel Penny saved a young woman that day, and New York City tried to prosecute him. They tried to put that man in jail. They didn't put in jail the person who was going to harm that woman that day. Well, I mean, obviously because he died, but it wasn't because of Daniel Penny, by the way. But no, they didn't keep that guy in jail. If they had, that whole situation wouldn't have happened. That woman could have gone on about her day. But you notice that it's always the blame put, well, it's mental illness. Possibly it's part of it. But you're not really allowed to talk about any other part of it. You're not allowed to look at this situation. You're genuinely not. You're not allowed to look at this or any situation in the UK, any of the stabbings, the acid attacks, the gangs, oh man. So getting into that stuff is pretty ridiculously dark. You're not allowed to talk about it at all in the UK. You can't talk about it at all, but you're socially conditioned not to bring up certain pertinent bits of information about the problem in general. You have to compartmentalize it to such a degree where it becomes this vague, empty, meaningless thing. And at the end of the day, there's a victim in this. There are multiple victims. There's the kid's brother who passed away and the kid himself who has to live with this. And it doesn't help anyone to try to downplay this, to pretend this isn't what it is. Oh, no, it's just mental problems. No, it's because we have a country that doesn't hold black people accountable. Out of fear of being called a racist, just like in the UK, where you have Muslims who can get away with gang raping little kids, little girls, you absolutely have a court system that refuses. You have a police department, if you can even call it that refuses to prosecute because they don't want to be called racist. We have a major problem that we're not even allowed to discuss and talk about. I think that's terrible. And for the betterment of everyone, I think that we need to start addressing this stuff more honestly, because Asmon's take on this is, well, I don't really want to mention some of the most important elements of the patterns that we see here because it's downstream of gender politics, and I also don't like gender politics.
I disagree with the idea that men should be considered dangerous proactively because men statistically commit more crime.
Proactively, you don't believe in patterns, numbers, statistics, all of that is completely irrelevant. You shouldn't pay attention to things in the past to predict things in the future, right? Basically, shut off your brain. That's the conclusion. No, I'm sure that the next expansion of World of Warcraft will be everything that WoW players want it to be. And I guarantee that there's not going to be any overpriced mounts. There's not going to be any WoW tokens that you can buy. No. Why would you just assume that? I mean, you could talk about a pattern of behavior from Blizzard. What pattern? You can't. I don't like basically making a presupposition about this company. Blizzard's such a wonderful company, right? When you actually examine what Asmongold's saying here, and I'm not calling him out personally, because he's on Twitch, I understand. But this is a problem that a lot of people have, is that they will not address this openly. They won't talk about it, and it doesn't help anyone. In the end, it hurts everyone. And I think even people who may disagree with me, they don't like my tone, they don't like the way that I say things, I would hope at the bare minimum that you would want the least amount of harm in this world to everyone. Everyone. Regardless of race, regardless of religion, you would want the least amount of harm to other people. The way you do that is by looking at the world, looking at numbers of things, percentages, this, and making an informed determination based on information. You don't stumble blind in the dark and so we're going to find a solution based on, feeling around the wall. You can't touch here, you can't touch here. No, we have to be honest about this stuff. Is it uncomfortable? Yes. Do we want to do this? No, but we have to. Because the end result is this kid's life is forever changed. This other kid's life is forever ended. And I think they deserve better. I think Laken Riley deserves better. I think all these people that have been victimized, I think they deserve better. Personally, that's my opinion.
I do think is that we need to be a lot more honest whenever you see people that are violent with low impulse control. These people are not fit for society. I think that anybody who pops off over a seating dispute and kills somebody over seating dispute, he should have never been in a situation to have let this happen in the first place. And I think a lot of these people, they exhibit antisocial behavior, violent behavior for many, many years. Nothing is done about it. And then eventually it goes over the line, and then we're gonna have to pay a bunch of fucking money to keep this piece of shit in jail. I'm a big fan of institutionalizing people, and I understand that some people might find that to be wrong or you shouldn't do that. I view the people who think that not institutionalizing people like this is a good thing. They're trying to do something that makes them feel good. It's not helpful. It's not. And that's...
I actually agree with him. I agree with him completely on that. I think that people who show low impulse control and have a propensity towards violence, and I mean, a lot of these people have a rap sheet at, an arm's length long. No, absolutely they should be institutionalized for the safety of themselves and other people in their community. It's like, for me, I would love for us to be a high honor society. I would love for us to be a high honor society where we value traditions, we value our heritage, our history, the things that matter, and we work towards a common good for every human being in America to live a more prosperous life. I'm actually with Asmongold that I'm more liberal than some people when it comes to economics. I mean, I'm not on Asmon's level, but I would be okay with spending taxpayer money to help fellow Americans. But I don't want to help people from other countries that have nothing to do with us. I want to help American citizens, American children. And I think that unfortunately we've lost sight of that, and we can't even talk about the problem anymore.
That's the big problem. All we're doing with these people is that we give them forks and we expect them not to stick it in a light socket. The sooner that you separate them from society and you're able to deal with them in a way that's healthy for not only them, but also the people that they can negatively affect, the better off it is for everybody.
Yep, I agree with that. My main, I guess you could say my main issue is with the presentation, and, I don't mind it. I don't mind it so much. After listening to the whole thing, I don't mind it so much, but I just think that ignoring certain elements because they're uncomfortable is ultimately going to cause people to look at a solution that only has like 3/4 of the pieces. I would like for people to look at the whole puzzle and get a solution that is totally and completely complete. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for today's video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.